Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here. And today we have the long-awaited Tier 9 Premium U.S. Destroyer, the Johnston, in port to review for you guys today. The Johnston of Taffy 3 fame is finally in the game, fellas. We did do a cinematic video on Taffy 3, if you want to check that out. That tells the Johnston story, if you're interested in the full story of the Johnston. TLDR, she charged the Yamato and did not care, struck fear into the heart of the Japanese Navy. In fact, she was so ferocious they thought she was a heavy cruiser, at least, and not a destroyer. So, pretty good story there. Now, some things have been done with the Johnston that I was hoping for them to go in a different direction with, because at Taffy 3 she ate multiple shells from heavy cruisers, battleships, literally the Yami, right? And I thought maybe they would give her the French damage saturation or a heal to kind of represent her historical side, right? But they didn't go in that direction. They went in a different direction, and we will be talking about it obviously in today's video. But first things first, massive shout out to the channel's Patreons. I'm not a CC, so I don't get these ships to review for free, and the generous Patreons, whose names should be showing up on screen right now, make this ship review and all ship reviews possible, as we have to purchase these ships with funds from the Patreon or from the ad revenue that the channel generates. Other thing, though, the art department has done a very, very nice job, as I'm worse than a dog right now being distracted by a squirrel looking at the ship in the middle of talking about the Patreons. Looks very good. You can tell they went in and touched up the model. I've looked at the kid's model quite a bit. She's a bit of an older ship. But yeah, anyway, Patreon is the best place to support the channel, besides, of course, watching the videos and streams. Link to that is in the description down below, getting my mind back up on track. Alright, but yeah, let's take a look at the Johnston, see what they did with her in-game, and then we'll take her into battle to see how well she does. Alright, so let's talk about her. Actually, let's talk about her camo first. This is her camo. You get your choice of dark blue or, oh my god, blinding white. Good lord, I was expecting this to be like a bright gray, maybe, but not like, look at me, great white fleet white. Okay, so yeah, two very different camo options there if you have unlocked the alternative camo scheme for the American camos. As far as the economy goes, she is a tier 9 premium ship, so she gets that tier 9 economy. So she gets a 10% buff to her credits and 100% buff to her various XPs. Now, you might be saying, well, a 10% buff to the credits, that's not much of a bonus package. Tier 9 ships have a baked-in premium economy as well. It is the best in the game that you can still obtain. Obviously, not like the old school Missouri or anything like that, but it is still a very good economy, so she should be a pretty good credit printer from that viewpoint. Alright, now let's take a look at her armor. Yeah, she's a Fletcher. Yeah, 19 millimeters everywhere, except for superstructure, which is 13 millimeters. No surprise there, since she is a destroyer. She, of course, does not have a citadel. Alright, first survivability, she has 17,100 HP. How does that stack up compared to the Techline Fletcher, which is like the only Fletcher that I don't have at this point? It's 13,900, but this is probably the A-hull, right? In the B-hull you get more. Yeah, so yeah, it's the same as the Techline Fletcher. Alright, 17,100. For her main battery guns, you of course get 5 of the single-mounted 127mm guns with a 4.5 second reload time. The range is 12.5 kilometers with a maximum dispersion of 109 meters. The HE does a maximum damage of 1800. That's if you manage to citadel with it. You get a 5% chance of starting a fire with the HE and 21 millimeters of pin with the HE, but you probably won't be using the HE that much. What you will be using is the SAP, because that is the direction they chose to go in with the Johnston. They gave her SAP, which SAP is basically like turbo HE with a negative fire chance. It pins more, it has more alpha damage, so it's pretty nice, actually. Speaking of more alpha damage, she has a maximum damage rating with her sap shells of 2500. They can pin 36 millimeters of armor, which that gets you up and over the 32 millimeter threshold, which is the last major armor threshold in the game. So you can farm battleship extremities, superstructures just fine. And this is going to be absolutely devastating to any lightly armored targets, so light cruisers and especially destroyers. Alright, and both the HE and the SAP come out at 792 meters a second. So I am assuming she gets the American shell arc, so she'll be shooting rainbows of sap through the air. She does get a burst fire mode, which when you swap to it, you get 3 back-to-back salvos with 1.4 seconds in between each salvo, and only a 9-second reload time afterwards. That's actually pretty dang nice. I mean, 9 seconds isn't that long. Maybe in destroyer years it's long because destroyers, everything's happening much faster. But overall, that is not a very long reload time between burst. So it's quite useful, at least on paper. Or on pixel, I should say. You get 2x5 of the torpedoes, 533 millimeter torpedoes with a reload time of 170 seconds, a range of 13.5 kilometers, and a maximum damage rating of 17,900. They chug along at 66 knots, and they're detectable from 1.4 kilometers away. Depth charges, you get 2 charges of them. You get 12 depth charges per charge. They reload in 40 seconds. You can see them on the sides back here, and I'm assuming you also get some that roll off the back here. If you've seen Greyhound, you know what's up. A rating has an A rating of 57. She gets 6 of the single-mounted 20mm Oerlikon guns. She gets 5 of the dual-mounted 40mm Bofors, and then the main battery guns count as AA for a continuous damage rating of 159. You get 1,540 damage per flak burst and a 35% sector reinforcement. Her maximum speed is 38 knots with a turning circle radius of 580 meters and a rudder shift time of 3 seconds. And her concealment is 7.2 kilometers base before you build into it. And for her box of gimmicks, you get your choice of engine boost or a DFAA. Given that her A rating is only 57, we're going to keep that on engine boost. And you get the American smoke screen. You get 30 seconds of it dispersing. And it is there for 127 seconds, reloads in 160 seconds, 3 charges of that base, and there is that burst fire mechanic right there. Alright, so I am going to go ahead and put a commander and module build on this ship, and we'll meet right back here. So for the modules, I went with main armaments mod 1. This gives us a 20% reduction of our main battery guns and our torpedoes getting knocked out. Also buffs their survivability by 50% and also reduces their repair time by 20%. And since, well, that's where our damage is coming from, we want to keep those guys in the fight. Then I went with engine room protection. This gives us a 20% a reduction in the chance of our engine or steering gears being knocked out by 20%, and also gives them a 20% buff to their repair time. And as you are in a DD, you don't want that getting knocked out. You want that getting knocked out as little as possible because your maneuverability and speed is what keeps you alive. Torpedo tubes mod 1 is what I put in slot number 3, because the torpedoes, I mean, they're there, and why not give them a little bit more of an oomph? The increased speed makes them easier to aim because, it's taking them less time to travel to the target. So you can get more torpedoes on target with faster torpedoes. Usually that is how it goes. And plus, with the guns being as accurate as they are, I don't really think you need to worry about decreasing their dispersion because you already have a maximum dispersion of 105 meters. So a 7% buff to that doesn't sound like too much. Then I went with propulsion mod 1. This reduces the time it takes for us to get to full power by 50%, helps with getting out of bad situations and juking shells, which is usually quite helpful in a destroyer, so that's what we went with. And plus, it's, damage kind of mod 2, no real need for it because we already have the DD burn time. And steering gears mod 1, maybe you could go with that, but I prefer to go for the speed over the maneuverability. Alright, then of course concealment systems mod 1. This gives us a 10% buff to the ship's detectability, which when you're a destroyer and you're a stealthy ship, you want to get your ship as stealthy as possible. That way you can disengage from situations where you are not prevailing quickly, and you can stay stealthy and spot for your team. And then finally I went with main battery mod 3 to give us a buff to our reload time, since the Johnston is more focused on the guns. Might as well make the guns shoot faster, you get more shells on target and more damage. In the end, you could have gone with the range mod, but I mean, you already have a 12-kilometer range, and with the American shells and their ballistics, that's not the best of time there, so I went with main battery mod 3 for the faster reload. Alright, for the commander build, I do have Halsey on here. This is my kid commander build, which is the cap contesting destroyer build, so it's made to go after other destroyers, basically. So it's basically, we want to survive, and we want to put shells on target. Alright, so I went with preventive maintenance. This gives us a 30% buff to the chance of our modules becoming incapacitated. So again, if we can avoid our engine and steering gears getting knocked out, we want to do that as much as possible. But if they do get knocked out, I took Last Stand. That way, when they do get knocked out, they worked at a reduced rate. I believe it is a 50% efficiency rate or a 70% efficiency rate, something like that. They still work, but you are slower and you're more sluggish than what you were beforehand. It's better than being completely knocked out. Then Demolition Expert. This is a holdover from the build. I didn't feel like paying a respec Halsey, but there will be cases, when you can't use your sap shells. So like when a battleship goes bow in or something, you want to swap over to the HE and start farming them down that way. You could remove it if it proves to be unuseful. But then I took main battery and AA specialist for a 5% buff to our reload time. Then adrenaline rush, because if you take damage, you should get something out of it. This improves your reload by 0.2% for every 1% of HP loss. Then superintendent for another charge of that lovely American smokescreen and that 8% engine boost. And then survivability expert for another 350 HP per tier to give us a little bit more HP to work with. And then finally concealment expert for an additional 10% buff to our ship's detectability to make us that much more stealthier and sneaky. So again, we can do destroyer things like spot for our team and stay undetected while throwing torpedoes at other ships. And you could potentially take Fearless Brawler or mess with it a little bit, but this is what I'm going to run today. If it needs to be adjusted, I will. Alright, so also let me just double check. Yeah, so that engine boost is an 8% engine boost for 120 seconds. Alright, so what has this done to the ship? We now have a 3.8 second reload time on our main battery guns, and our fire chance for our guns is now up to 6%. But actually, let me go ahead and slap these flags on here. That way you guys can get a better idea of what it's like when you're running full flags. And I don't really need those two. Let's go ahead and get smoke flag. Yeah. Speed flag, and yep, there goes smoke flag. Sorry, that was the consumable flag I was talking about earlier, and the flooding flag. Alright, so now with all the flags equipped, whoop, that's armor. That's survivability. Hey, 20,000 survivability now. Hit points now. Alright, for our main battery guns, now they have a 7% fire chance. There we go. Hit points, yep, 20,000 with superintendent. Survivability expert. Torpedoes, they now move at 69 nice knots. Concealment with the skills 5.8, and our max speed is 39.9 knots. So close to 40 knots there, just 0.1 away, but I'm sure we'll get that with the speed boost. And there we go again, survivability at 20,250. Alright guys, I'm going to go ahead and hop into a battle. I'll meet you guys there with a voiceover review of the Johnston. Alrighty fellas, so the Johnston. Now, off the bat, I am not too much of a destroyer player. I typically play two types of destroyers. I'll play the running gunboats, so ships like the Khabarovsk and the Kleber, and then I'll play cap contesting destroyers, so like the Smolin, the Groningen, the Kid. The way I play it, I'll go to the cap, try to take it, or try to take it from the enemy team, try to kill their DD, and then protect it like a Chihuahua, right? And that's how I played the Johnston, the cap contesting DD, right? And it's pretty good. It's actually pretty darn comfortable doing that. These sap shells, obviously, against destroyers are very effective. They're even quite good against light cruisers and lightly armored heavy cruisers and battleship superstructures and extremities for like the French and the British battleships, or any battleships that have 32mm noses or sterns, right? They are quite fearsome. And the burst mode is quite good. With most situations I was running into with the burst, I would usually remove about 10-ish K off of the enemy destroyer that I was using it on, or on the battleship superstructure or the cruiser side that I could pin. It typically would net me around 10-ish K. which is pretty good, especially when you're dealing with destroyers, even at tier 9 and tier 10. 10k, that's not an unsizable chunk of their HP. You could use it to either do that initial damage, or you could use your standard firing mode to get them down to like 10ish k HP, swap over to burst, and then burst them out, and then they are donezo. Or really, with the reload on it, you could really just stay in it in a lot of cases, because unlike other ships that have the burst mode where you have a long reload after, you don't really get that here in the Johnston. And I know I said like in the review, in the port section, that 9 seconds is longer in destroyer gears, but it doesn't really seem to be that much of a detriment. Now, of course, if you're going up against a situation where like the guy that you're going up against is just absolutely nailing his shots every time, you should probably stay in the standard firing mode. Or if you're not too comfortable with your aim yet, you should probably stay in it and only use the burst fire mode as it's the situation permits, right? Maybe not just stay in it. But if you are good with aiming with the Fletcher guns and you got that down, then absolutely let it fly in the burst mode, and you're doing 10k a pop, which is awesome. Now, the trade-off for this, as far as I can tell, because again, I have every Fletcher in the game except for the 2 tech line Fletchers, right? So I haven't played the Fletcher, but from looking at the stats, the big drop-off is in the torpedo power, because you have that 170-second reload time on your torpedoes, whereas the Fletcher only has 122 seconds, which it may not sound like a lot when you already have a 122-second torpedo reload time, but when you are sitting there waiting for your torpedoes to come off of cooldown, boy, does it suck. Because with the way that the Fletchers typically played, at least the way that I've been playing the Johnston, and the way that the shells allow you to play with their velocities, is that you can't be reached out to 14 kilometers with your guns trying to farm down battleships and stuff, because again, even at that range, the shell velocities, it's like they have parachutes attached to them, right? So it's not great for that. And that's typically where you fall back on your torpedoes and your stealth. You get close to them, you throw the torpedoes at the enemy ships, and hopefully they run into a couple of them, which with the torpedoes, which besides the reload time, or as far as I can tell, pretty much the same as the Fletcher's torps, it's good for that. But I wanted to do that more. But obviously, again, you have to balance out the ship some way there, so that's where you pay for that. So what I was running into is that situations where I couldn't engage the enemy with my guns because either there's too many ships around, and if I opened up, I'm going to get obliterated. But whereas if I was in a Fletcher, I could probably have these torpedoes already off cooldown and have them going towards the enemy team. And sure, you can build into it if you want to get the torpedoes down a little bit faster with the reload time, but then what's the point, right? You're playing the Johnston for the guns. That's what the Johnston is about. And if you are okay with that, and if you're playing a Fletcher and you want a more aggressive gun-based Fletcher that has sap, yeah, this is definitely the ship for you, but just know that going into it. As far as the ship performed, with the cap contesting anti-DD playstyle, you don't typically rack up a large amount of damage because you're murdering DDs, and well, it's hard to farm a DD that has minuscule HP at tier 9 and tier 10. So you won't be having a massive pile of damage by the time you get done with the match, but you still get rewarded for the damage that you did, right? The way the game rewards you is that you get rewarded what you did to the ship's HP proportionally, right? So if you murder a DD from full health to not, that's the same as farming a GK down from full health to not. So you still get rewarded for that, and you still make credits. And in fact, the match watching in the background, I was running no economic bonuses. I forgot to slap them on before I went into battle, and you'll see with the end results, it's still good, right? With the tier 9 baked in economy and the bonus package that it does come with, I still make over 500,000 credits, and I was in the top 5 on my team. But yeah, as far as performance goes, up and down with the matches I was having, even if the matches didn't go so well, I was typically finishing in the top 5, not leading the leaderboards because again, I'm not that great of a DD player, but that does definitely speak to the power of the Johnston, where I'm not a fantastic DD player, but I'm still getting in the top 5 pretty consistently on my team, in every situation, just by going to the caps and, murdering the DDs or trying to murder the DDs and taking the caps and such. It is a very rewarding gameplay style that the Johnston is quite good at from my experience, because you are getting those caps. You're getting either the solo cap ribbons, the assisted and cap ribbons, which are some of the best ribbons to get in the match. And again, when you're murdering DDs, you're getting a good reward, because with the burst firing mode, again, most tier 9 and tier 10 and tier 8 DDs, that's either like, if it isn't half of their HP, it's darn near half of their HP that you're taking out with one click of the button, well, one hold down of the mouse button if you can aim. So you're getting rewarded pretty darn well by doing that with just, one action basically. So it's a pretty good little destroyer. Again, you're paying off, you're trading off some of the torpedo power for it. So if you like the Fletcher, you want a more aggressive gun-based Fletcher, or you think the Johnston's cool, I believe this is a pretty solid ship to pick up. Now, it is only available, well, it's available actually in a few places. You can potentially get it in the Independence Day containers, which that's gambling. You can buy it in the Armory for, I believe it's in an Admiral pack in the Armory for Dubs, which is a lot because it's an Admiral pack. And then you can buy it in the Premium Shop outright for $83 US, or you can buy it in an Admiral bundle in the Premium Shop. The website, not the in-game one. In the Premium Shop website, individually or in the Admiral Pack bundle. The individual ship, which is the one I picked up, was $83, which is more than a tier 9 normally is, but it does come with a 10-point commander instead of a 3-point commander, so that's what's up with the uptick in price. They threw a 10-point commander with it instead of a 3-point commander, so there's that. So it is expensive, right? It's a tier 9 ship. I don't think anyone was expecting it to be a cheap ship when they announced it was going to be released for doubloons. But how good is it, Sealord? Well, as far as a numerical rating goes, I would give it a 7.5 out of 10. If they had given it like a small hill as a nod towards all the damage it took during the Battle off Samar, that would have been fantastic, especially since she got slapped with almost another minute onto her torpedo reload time. I feel like that would have given it like 8.5 territory, but it probably would have been too much again as far as game balancing goes. But still, that 7.5 rating, I think that's pretty appropriate, because it's not like an overly amazing ship, right? It's a nice side grade to the Fletcher, and it is the Johnston, so it's nice that they made the more aggressive Fletcher, the Johnston, who was very aggressive. It would also been fantastic if it would have came with Commander Evans as a premium commander or as a unique commander or whatever. I'm not deducting points for that. I'm just saying it would have been nice if that would have happened. But anyway, the pros being, of course, the American 5-inch guns. They have sap shells. You get the reload booster, the alternative firing mode, where you can get, again, like 10k a burst out with it. Probably more if you could aim better than myself. You still do get the torpedoes, even though they do have the long reload time. They're still there, and they're still very potent. They still work. You get the American smoke screen, your choice of DFAA or engine boost. As far as the downsides go, of course, you have the longer torpedo reload time than the standard Fletcher, and you still have to deal with the American shell ballistics and the rainbow arcs, although of course that can be a bit of a bonus if you are trying to like hug an island and lob your shells over the island, but in most cases it just increases the time it takes for the shells to get to the target, especially in a ship like this, which is more geared to dealing with DDs across cap points, right, rather than farming. So guys, that's my review of the Johnston. Let me know what you guys think about her in the comments down below. If you're planning to pick her up, or if you have picked her up already, let me know what you guys think about the boat in the comments down below. Hope you guys have a great day. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 60,000 subscribers, and I cannot thank you guys enough for that. Hope you all have a wonderful 4th of July this Thursday. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.